Essentially, we're going to go through a bit of a testing screen. So I promise I am only going to talk for a little bit, and then I'm going to get you up around the room, moving into a practical sense where we're going to go through some tests to see where we are, and essentially the topic of today, where potentially some flat tyres are in our body if we think about that. You may have areas that pull up sore, more sore than normal, or maybe you currently have injuries themselves. Do we have hands up in the room? Is anyone actually injured right now? Couple? One? No? Okay, well, this is good then. But essentially the topic today is flat tyres in youth athletes, and I'm going to go into a little bit more detail around what a flat tyre is. So, it works. So essentially, I want you to think of a flat tyre as a specific deficit that you might have that is putting you at an increased risk of an injury. Okay, so think of your body, think of it as you're a powerful 16-wheeler truck, okay? So from a performance sense, very powerful. Just because you have a flat tyre, okay, doesn't mean the whole truck has to stop, okay? The whole other 15 wheels or the rest of your body, so if we think about one tyre as one component, okay, the rest of it keeps going. But essentially, if you read off on the board, we are referring to a flat tyre as essentially a body part that is relatively weak, or it's lacking the capacity to perform the demands of what your game is. So we've got footy in here, we've got, actually, hands up footy, hands up, majority, netball in the front. Okay, and I'm sure that we play a few other sports as well, and then all the PE on top of that your body has to go through. But essentially, in one of our previous chats as well, we spoke about it, that our training volumes are high, okay? And then on top of that, you come and you perform your gym exercises. Essentially, the demand of what you're putting your body through is very high, okay? You're not just performing the sports that you do here in ESP, there's a number of other sports that you're participating in. So the demand of what you're putting your body through is very large, okay? But essentially, we're gonna see and test some specific capacities that are very common in youth athletes that are lacking, which is putting people at an increased risk of an injury, okay? And you're actually going to get to test them. You're going to have a piece of paper and you're going to go around these specific testing batteries, and these are the ones that we do with our athletes when they come to base here and even in clinic, okay?
But just with that as well, like risk of injury, but also they don't perform as...
Oh, absolutely. You're not going to be able to perform to the best of your ability if you've got a specific deficit that is lacking. So thinking of your calf capacity and what load that takes when you're sprinting and you're running. Okay, well, I've actually injured myself because I had a deficit in my calf capacity, and that's stopping me from actually performing, but it's one actually holding me back from being the best at my sport, which at the moment is the long distance running. But if you think about it, hands up, who's ever after a first game back, where do we pull up feeling sore? Hands up, whose quads? Whose quads are feeling really sore? Hands up, yeah. Anyone's calves? Anyone after the first? Yes, me as well. But essentially, if you've got greater strength, greater capacity in these areas, you're going to be able to perform to a higher level. One, because they're going to actually be able to produce more power, but essentially you're going to have those repeat efforts in the tank that someone's got a deficit not going to be able to have, okay? Okay, again, that's going on to that performance aspect that Ms. Hughes just mentioned, okay? If a 16-wheeler truck can't reach its potential with only 15, okay? So that's where this topic comes into it, is we are going to find out if there is a specific deficit, and then we'll also talk about how we can address it, okay? Questions so far? This is the analogy that we use to help people understand capacity deficits, okay, and performance deficits, and linking it back to how that can affect your performance, okay? So these are just a few, okay, some of the trends that we notice in our youth athletic population at clinic. So I've put together a little bit of analogy. So think of hamstring strength, okay, that is a key one that we see a deficit in their maximal strength, okay, as well as capacity. Trunk control is a massive one, okay, in strength. We also know that throughout our youth stages as well, our bodies are growing and developing and they're constantly changing, okay? So that is another aspect to consider, is that your body is changing quite drastically and quite frequently throughout that growth spurt as well. So that is something to consider as well as in a part of this. Okay, hip flexors, okay, quadricep strength, ankle range and calf capacity. And these essentially is what is making up our testing battery today. Okay, so we are going to get you to go through and do all of these tests to understand, do you actually have a deficit in one of these areas? And then based on that, what can we do to actually improve it? Okay, because it can be a slight little tweak. A lot of it is the work that we do in our ESP sessions, but sometimes things require a little bit more love and attention based on each individual tolerance and capacities. Questions?
Is there anything they've got no weaknesses looking up there? Can you identify one of their weaknesses? Even if you just think about it, that's what you're going to be testing on. So you can see. Yeah, so you might think you're awesome all-round athletes, but most things are.
Yeah, yeah. So the first one we're going to go through is a knee to wall test. Okay, so this one is assessing overall the flexibility that we have in our calf. Okay, a lot of time this is a key area that people are lacking. Okay, which can essentially hold us back from getting in good positions when we're running and we're sprinting and we're changing direction. Okay, but it can also put us at an increased risk of injury. Okay.
And squatting?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Wednesday, so a lot of you are very tight.
Hands up, who's ever had either Con, myself, one of the other coaches come and put a couple of plates underneath your heels when you're squatting? Yeah, Das. There's been a couple others. There's a couple others, but essentially your ankle range can affect your ability to squat. Okay, your ankle range affects your hip range. And a lot of time, well, due to the fact that we spend a lot of time in shoes, often that they're quite big and bulky, that can affect your ankle range. Also just lack of potential movement. There's many things that can affect it, but the most important thing is it is a key one that we see a lot of lacking potential in our ankle range, which is essentially why we've given you plates underneath it to help you squat better, okay? So ideally, we'd be able to get 8 centimetres, and I will go through how to do these tests before we start, within 2 centimetres each side. Okay, so we know that the overall score is important, but we also know the symmetry between each side is just as important as well. Okay, questions? No, I'm going to go through how to perform each test at the end. I'm going to get us up and walking around, and then it's going to be very much a practical driven by all of you. A single leg maximal sit to stand test. So you have been doing these in the morning. Our max single leg sit to stands if you have been coming to the morning sessions. Essentially, this one is looking at our quadricep capacity, okay? How many times that we can keep doing a single leg squat, but it's also looking at our overall movement on one leg. A lot of time we see a lack of knee control, okay, which is a huge indicator of injury, but it's also an indicator of can you actually just move well? Can you move well on a single leg, which then affects your performance? You're jumping, you're sprinting, you're running. Okay, a lot of time if people can nail this test, they're the ones out there that are moving, okay, moving to a greater capacity on that one leg. Sorry, I missed it, 20. So for those that have been doing these in the morning, they are not easy, okay, but 20 is the goal, okay, above that. Maximal single leg a maximal single leg hamstring bridge test. Again, this is looking at your hamstring capacity, okay? Yes, capacity and strength are 2 different things, okay? But this is essentially the first thing we want to look at. If you can do 5 single leg hamstring bridges, there is a deficit. That is increasing our risk of hamstrings. Key thing is especially our field sports as well as our netballers in our court sport, but you're getting up to very, very high speeds because of the length of distance of your field. And it's important, if we've got a deficit here, one, you're not allowing yourself to be best protected from those high loads, okay? Yes, we want to make sure we're practicing sprinting, and that is the key thing for the sprinters in the room as well as our footy. I'm not sure what's happening over in the corner, but just keep your eyes up for me. Big area. A lot of these things, it doesn't take a lot of time. They're very easy things that you can add into your program to help. And it's those extra, I wouldn't even say it's a 1%er, it's a massive thing for you to be working on. And it can take 5 minutes of your time each day to make sure that you are staying on that field and performing at your best, okay? So hamstring bridge capacity, a lot of that high speed running volumes that we're looking to protect. Questions or anything to add? No? Okay, again, a maximal single leg calf raise. I spoke about this before, but there is massive loads that go through that calf and foot and ankle complex when you are sprinting and running, okay? Huge loads, okay? It is the first thing that hits that ground when you are sprinting, okay? First and foremost, we want to make sure that we've got the capacity to be able to tolerate the loads, but especially it's that performance-based one. It's one of those things, if you want to sprint faster, you need to make sure, yes, you are sprinting, okay, but huge elements to look through, okay, especially from that injury prevention's perspective. Calves are very, very common. You're doing high loads, okay, you're probably up at, I don't know how many kilometres you're doing in a game or a training session, but I know for me, this is a key area in my deficits. And I'm sure maybe you can point out if you're finding that you're pulling up sore in this area, or you're just little things you're finding that you're not able to sprint to your fullest potential in aspects like that. Okay, but just respect the fact of how much load you put through your bodies when you're playing your sports. Max plank holds. Sorry, I'm going through the 20 again, each side, through range. Okay, you'll do the test and quickly, I did it the other day, very humbled. Okay, maximal plank holds. Okay, and this is I'm not going to go into a heap of detail around this one, but looking at the connection between here and hips and lower body, massive, okay? A lot of time people, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but we like to live in this really hyper-extended position just where we naturally are, okay? But what we are looking at here is, yes, your overall capacity of your trunk muscles, but how does it actually move, okay? So a lot of time you'll see us come and just fix that plank position. We'll go through it when we're testing it, but, ooh, it's gone too far. But essentially we're looking at that control between where our hips and our pelvis as well as our trunk, okay? Massive in sprinting, okay, massive just in being able to move well in a gym perspective, but giving us other options. Doesn't mean that this is a bad thing that we live here, but we want to be able to have that association and good strength and control from improvement on performance, sprinting, moving, changing direction. This is a big one as well that we've recently added into our Saints girls program, from a sense of a lot of them are lacking a lot of capacity just in their abs and their trunk. Okay, and I'm not necessarily thinking of the sit-up based actions. Yes, they have a place, but it's also those bracing movements that are very important. We've got some excitement happening out there. Questions on that? This is a bit of a complex area and space, but we'll touch base on it when we do the demo. So I have printed off a sheet for you, and it's going to have the test. Please make sure you put it in, know your lefts and rights. If you don't, okay, please get them, that's what I do, okay. Please put them in the right spot. We're actually going to track this. So we do have your capacity scores written down. Okay, it's just an additional aspect for us to have if there does happen to be an injury that does occur. Physios can go off of these as well. Your coaches can go off these as well and kind of pinpoint what we need to do to help improve. Okay, we talk about the flat tyres. The first slide I spoke about, if we do have an injury, it doesn't necessarily mean you don't have to target. It means you need to, if there's an injury that occurs, we need to, one, remove anything that's all those painful movements, but we can still work on everything else. Okay, so this gives us information to support that. I've also popped the norm scores on here as well, so you have that reference. Okay, so your ankle dorsiflexion, you're going to have somebody helping to describe this, but essentially, one thing to note is that we do have a little bit of a dip it against the wall, okay? It's going to affect our scores ever so slightly by a few centimetres, but for the most part, we're going to keep this accurate every single time we test it. So this is going to be laid out. If you can't see, please come and see. But essentially, you're going to have your shoes off. You're going to be facing the wall, and you want to see how far you can go. Yeah, you can leave your socks on. You can. some people, you're essentially trying to get back as far as you can before that heel comes up. Some of you might be surprised that it comes off very quickly. And there might be a great symmetry between sides, but it's a really interesting one to have a look. Everyone's just now like going, oh, what's gonna happen?
Wait, you get the back heel?
Yes, so your back heel. So when you're here, I'm gonna be floating around to help with, especially this one. I'm gonna help make sure that we're all good with it, but you're gonna be facing. I'm gonna come and have a look and just make sure that heel's coming off, which is why there's no shoes allowed, because essentially people's shoes can definitely affect their range.
In a good or bad way?
I wouldn't say, we'll stay away from good and bad, but it will affect your range. All right, next one, let's head to the back of the room. All right, single leg max box squat. I do have a couple of tools in here. I may come around and just adjust this height for you, but I'm gonna make a note on your program if I need to. There's probably a couple of you, 3, that I might need to adjust from a height perspective. But essentially you are gonna go hands on your hips and you are squatting all the way down and then coming all the way back up. What I don't wanna see is this. Why?
Because that's not a full range of motion.
You're just falling and also you are using a lot of momentum. So you're on one leg, holding on, just a touch, drive back up, okay? As many as you can. Again, there'll be a couple of teachers floating around making sure that you are all good, but it is max. There's no time, it is as many as you can. Once you can no longer continue, you can stop, but also as soon as you start to just fall and drop, that's when you stop as well. They have to be touch, drive up. I'm also going to come around and watch. A lot of this one is we can have a look at and see what is happening at that knee, what is happening at that hip. For those that are struggling with the depth, like I said, I will come and adjust the height and range, but I'll make a note on your piece of paper so I write that in the notes because we want to be consistent and know as well. Where to next? Hamstring bridge, all right. You good, Chad? Next one is a maximal hamstring bridge. We are going to be doing these on the benches, okay? Can I actually just get us to come around so no one's just facing my back when I'm doing this? But, you two. Single leg maximal hamstring, okay? So it is as many as you can. There's no time again, but we want to make sure that we get that angle right. So digging your heel into the bench, and it's got to be on the bench. It can't be here, can't be toe, it's your heel. Hands flat. And it is as many as you can. I don't want to see this leg helping you get up. It's got to stay up in the air. You've got to get full range. As soon as you can't get range, you stop the test. Okay? Will be teachers around.
How do they know what angle to have their nose if you have it too close in?
So what I'm going to get us to do it shouldn't be 90 degrees. So if you set up too close, that will affect the score and make it too easy. So what I will just say is dig your heels in and then just shuffle 2 shuffles back. And
Angles up, boys, girls. Angles a knee.
yeah, about 110. 110 to 130 is what we go for. Normally,
110.
yeah, 111. Normally you would either measure this with, like you'd measure it, but as I'm happy as long as it's not all the way in, just take a couple of shuffles back and that should be fine because we know that strength will be within that 10-degree range. It's going to be the same. So single leg, as many as you can. Cramps might happen after that test, so if you need a bit of a hamstring stretch, just yell out, let me know. It is a good one to get a nice hamstring cramp. Next one. The next test that we're going through is a maximal calf capacity. We're going to be doing it through range, okay? Standing on the step, and the calf capacity tells us a lot of things, okay? It doesn't just necessarily tell us about your overall calf capacity. It tells us about our movement, how you load, whereabouts are you pushing through your big toe? Are you rolling out, which I do? It tells us a lot of info. So again, I'll be floating around, having a look, making sure you're doing this all good. I'm going to demonstrate this first of all on, I'm going to go on 2 legs. Con, do you want to actually, can I get Sarah, I got a dodgy calf right now. Can you help? So essentially what you're going to do is, one leg, you're just going to have the ball of your foot with your heel hanging off, and you're just holding on with one hand. I don't want you putting pressure on here, okay, because we want to know the capacity of your calf. We don't want to have assistance. So you're going to go all the way down. So I want you to go, somebody's going to be counting, so you just got to go 1, 1, 1. Nice and slow. Yeah. It's as many as you can do. Okay.
Sometimes we don't want to do the test.
Yeah. So.
One of the things that like a musician uses.
Yeah. So we would use we use metronomes as well to time this test when we are in clinic. But due to the sheer volume of us today, the tempo is you've got to hold for 1 second, you're going down 1 second, nice and slow, okay? That's the key thing. As soon as you start to bounce through the movement, okay, that's when your partner or one of the teachers is going to go, nope, you're cut off there, okay? So we are giving you responsibility to test yourself, but make sure you don't cheat. Cool? Questions? Nope. All right, last 2, and then it's your turn. So with this one, we will have, we'll be going off this time. One person will time for you. If you've got a watch, happy for to use your watch, that's fine. But yeah, otherwise you're on the clock over there. Key thing is with this one is how we actually do our planks. And we've gone through how to do these, but a key thing again we see when we're planking is we see that we want to just tilt. Okay, we want to tilt forwards through those hips and where our pelvis is. We don't want to be doing that. We don't want to be doing our planks through that. So essentially, imagine if you did have a belt on, okay? You want to think about, you want to bring that belt up towards where your nose is, okay? So you want to bring it up. If it's all the way back here, you can pop your hands here, just think about bringing that forward, because essentially that's what we want from just making sure everything's doing what we want it to be doing. Cool? On your elbows, okay? In a nice strong plank hold position. If we start to do this, we're going to come through and just help you. But as soon as you start to fatigue and we lose that position, no. So whoever's helping testing this, just be mindful of that. You might not even realise you're doing it, but we'll have people floating around to help as well. Maximal hold that you can go for. Okay. All right, last one. So the next one you were doing is a triple hop, okay? 3 hops forward. Okay, and then you'll be sticking the landing. The person will measure from the back of your heel, okay? So you're starting at the cone, okay, at the dumbbell, toes behind the line, and it is 3 consecutive hops forwards, okay? So 1, 2, 3, and you're sticking the landing, okay? So it is the, and then you got to stick the landing, measure it from the back. We'll get a dowel out, and you're measuring it from the back of where it is. Okay?
I was going to ask if you have to land on the same foot.
Strategic.
Yeah, same foot. A hop is same foot, okay, from when you were landing that. All right, a couple of important pieces of information before we go and test. You get 1 attempt on all of them except for your triple hop. You get 3 attempts on each side. The dorsiflexion, you only need 1. All the others, again, you only want 1, believe me. But your triple hop, 3 attempts, okay? Must stick the landing on it, and you got to record from the back of your heel. We'll be floating around to help as well, but we're going to give you a sheet of paper. You're going to grab a clipboard, work in small groups. I don't mind where you start, but just spread yourself out because you've got about 20 minutes to get all this done. You're bringing up the, very good, floating. I'll help you with this one. Come back a smidge. Same thing. Forward, try not to twist forward. No, come forward a bit. Come forward to that 11. I just want to wrap this up with a simple practical takeaway. Just going to hold on for the bell. Okay, I'm just going to finish with a simple practical takeaway, okay, that you can add these specific exercises in. We are familiar with our RPE, okay, so we can add these exercises into our warm-up. We've gone through our warm-up and spoken through what our activation could look like and what we can include. We like to add these injury prevention specific exercises where our deficits and our flat tires lie, okay, into our warm-up, okay, whether that's before some of your strengths that you do prior to ESP, or whether that is one of your matches or your games, okay, or your training sessions. You can do them just about anywhere, okay. You might need to modify based on what equipment you have, but a simple takeaway is to start adding in a couple of these exercises based on some of the flat tires that we have identified today, okay. You can simply do that by practicing the exercise here, okay, or you can come and chat with one of your coaches, okay, whether that's myself or Con or one of the physios on how you can implement this, okay. So you're in year 9 now, so you should be taking responsibility for your own body, okay, and your own training, okay. So if there's questions about how you can implement it, ask, but a really easy one is to add it into your warm-up, okay, or maybe you add it into 5 minutes at the end of your gym session. Okay, it's just about trying to find 5 minutes of your day to do the, or a couple times a week to start to implement some of these, okay, because it makes a massive difference, okay, one, keeping you on the field, but allowing you to get to the full potential that you are, and we use the analogy going back to being able to be that most powerful, okay, car, truck, 16-wheeler that we want to use for that analogy, okay. Does that make sense? Yeah?